Hey ladies and gentlemen, today we have something out of the line, mainly because there are a few misconceptions about censorship of the swastika and other Nazi symbols in video games in Germany. As things have changed this year, I thought it would be a good idea to give you some background info on the issue. Now, for a deeper understanding of the whole mess this topic is, we first need to take a look at the law, namely the German Criminal Code, Section 86, Dissemination of Propaganda Material of Unconstitutional Organizations. Beautiful. Subsection 1. Whosoever within Germany disseminates or produces, stocks, imports or exports, or makes publicly accessible through data storage media for dissemination within Germany or abroad propaganda material. First, of a political party which has been declared unconstitutional. Second, of an organization which has been banned. Third, of a government, organization or institution outside the Federal Republic of Germany active in pursuing the objectives of one of the parties or organizations indicated in number 1 or 2 above. Or fourth, propaganda materials, the content of which are intended to further the aims of a former National Socialist organization, shall be liable to imprisonment not exceeding 3 years or a fine. To put it bluntly, there's a general ban on not only National Socialist, but theoretically also communist and anarchist symbols. During the Cold War, this was sometimes enforced, sometimes not, depending on various factors. As the Communist Party of Germany, the KPD, was and still is banned, displaying its symbols is technically a violation of the law, though it is rare someone gets charged for it. National Socialist symbols, though, are banned since the very introduction of the law. In the 1990s, a few games were hit by the law, most prominently Wolfenstein 3D. In 1994, Wolfenstein 3D was confiscated in Germany following a court ruling, meaning it was banned from being sold at all. At the same time, it was put on the index by the BPJS, the Bundesprüfstelle für jugendgefährdende Schriften, or Federal Department for Scripture Harmful to Minors. Also very German. If something was put on the index, it was only available for adults. Now, this whole thing happened because of the high level of violence Wolfenstein 3D depicted, not because of the swastikas and other Nazi symbols. It took another 4 years to really kick off the Nazi symbol ban in video games, and the reason for it was actually rather strange. In 1988, a right-wing extremist was on trial in Germany for running a National Socialist website and forum, where also the game Wolfenstein 3D was being sold, with the explicit intention of using it as some kind of propaganda tool, which is ridiculous as you kill Nazis and even Hitler in it. In the end, whatsoever the judges decided, National Socialist symbols are generally banned from all video games. From a legal standpoint, this was a very questionable decision, as there is Section 86, Subsection 3, Subsection 1 above shall not apply if the propaganda materials or the act is meant to serve civil education, to avert unconstitutional movements, to promote art or science, research or teaching, the reporting about current or historical events or similar purposes. In this case, the judges also decided Section 86a, that regulates the production and publication of anything affected by Section 86, would apply. To use their own words, more so, the protective purpose of Section 86a mandates that in computer games no badges or anti-constitutional organizations should be shown. Insofar it is, irrelevant that the forbidden badges and symbols in the game Wolfenstein 3D were situated in the virtual spaces associated with the enemy. With this ruling, they did not decide that the so-called social adequacy clause, subsection 3 of Section 86, did not apply for video games. They simply ignored the option it might. This implied the judges did not consider video games art, though it was never said or written down. Because of this ruling, pretty much all publishers refrained from releasing any games with Nazi symbols in the next 15 years, despite it being highly controversial. Now, as you can see, this only applies to video games. Movies were usually able to display swastikas and such as long as they weren't blatantly venerating the Nazis. Same for historical pictures and movies displayed for educational purposes, and of course paintings and illustrations. And yes, this ruling is also the reason why a movie like Inglourious Basterds was fine with its Nazi symbols, while Wolfenstein the New Order and Wolfenstein 2 the New Colossus had to use alternate insignia, badges and storyline. Throughout the next decade though, the acceptance of video games steadily grew to the point where nowadays an estimated 43% of the German population play some kind of virtual games at least once per week. This led to a slow change in general policy on games. In 2009, the Deutscher Computerspielpreis, German Computer Games Award, was introduced. This happened mainly because of the lobbying of GAME, the Federal Association of Computer Game Developers. The German Federal Ministry of Transport and Digital Infrastructure is also involved. With this and the accession of GAME to the German Culture Council, the German government acknowledged video games are a form of art. And this changed a lot. Generally, the age ratings for violent games dropped a bit, but it took some time until someone showed up to actually challenge the court ruling from 1998, and it came from an unexpected direction.
First round, fight! Merkel. Helmut! Landner.
Attack!
Wagenknecht.
Stirnfische!
Scholz. Hohe Energie. Goland. Österhardt.
Bundesfighter 2 Turbo was a satirical game released by Bohemian Browser Ballad, a state-funded satirical online project that is aimed at people in their 20s. As you can see, the character Alexander Gauland, head of the right-wing nationalist party AfD, uses a swastika move. Directly after release, the game was reported to the authorities, apparently with the intention to force the government to take a stance on such symbols in video games. And the unthinkable happened. It was ignored. Twice, actually. After the second report, the responsible attorney answered, in the legal literature, the court ruling of the OLG Frankfurt from the year 1998 is regarded as obsolete, and went on to point out that changes in the Youth Protection Act today ensure that games that aren't supposed to get into the hands of minors won't wind up exactly there, something that wasn't guaranteed in 1998 as the USK Rating Board's ratings weren't mandatory back then. The USK, Unterhaltungssoftware Selbstkontrolle, or Entertainment Software Self-Regulation, is the half-state, half-corporate-run organization responsible for video game ratings in Germany. It exists since 1994, and, you guessed right, the whole Wolfenstein 3D story was one of the reasons why it was established in the first place. Since 2003, their ratings are mandatory, and sellers have to check the age of buyers via ID, or in case of parents buying the game for their offspring, point out the rating, though parents are allowed to ignore it and give the game to their children nonetheless. Because of the court ruling from 1998, the USK has banned any game containing imagery of Nazi and neo-Nazi organizations, the Ku Klux Klan, the Islamic State, and other groups, thus making such games unavailable to purchase in retail channels. On top of that, it can call upon the BPJM, the new name of the BPJS I mentioned at the beginning of the video, to put games on the index and make them less available. With the new stance of the prosecuting authorities shown earlier in 2018, the USK changed this. Games containing anti-constitutional symbols are now able to get an H rating, but they will be thoroughly examined. The first games benefiting from this are Through the Darkest of Times.
That those people meant what they said. We had to do something. We couldn't just stay silent. But we also
A game
knew
which lets you
that it
play
can
a
cost
German
us
resistance
our
cell
heads.
in Germany during the Nazi reign,
And so I was not surprised when they came for me.
and Attentat 1942. An adventure where you play through the aftermath of Operation Anthropoid and try to unravel who ratted out your grandfather. Both are of course serious games, But the next Wolfenstein game, Wolfenstein 3, might actually stand a chance to be allowed to display Nazi insignia. The changes in Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, already led to quite a controversy in German media and politics if the government wanted to somewhat cover up the past. This does not mean though that every game with swastikas and such in them will now get a rating. The realistic multiplayer shooter Postscriptum was denied one, because it does not give any context. You just play either British, US or German soldiers, including a Waffen-SS unit, without any further information, thus not adhering to the social adequacy clause. This also means Hearts of Iron 4 would probably not get a rating in its uncut version. I think now it is time for a bit of personal opinion on this. And I have to admit, I'm not completely against this law. I'm not against banning games that are open propaganda or let you commit war crimes without serious consequences. But I would like it to be more educational. Games are at least as informative and imprinting, if not more so, than movies or documentaries, because you perform the actions yourself. You don't just watch them. It is a shame there are basically no games out there that dare to let you experience the Second World War from a German perspective in a narrative campaign. I only remember the codename Panzers games and one add-on for Company of Heroes doing this, I think. And they largely ignored the whole horribleness of war and the crimes committed. I would love to see a development studio and a big publisher to pick up on this and even make a first-person shooter from a German perspective. You could fight through the Second World War in the West and the East, seeing hubris, blind deference, and the superiority complex of the Nazis bringing ruin to Europe, and in the end to Germany itself. What a push this would be for the cause of the gaming community, to finally being taken serious and games not only being seen as just games, but cultural assets on one level with movies that they already surpassed massively in turnover and profit. This would of course also mean the gaming industry and the community would need to step away from this "it's just a game, just let me play" attitude a bit. Because nobody will take quick fun games with little to no story away from you. I mean, we still have movies like The Expendables and Fast and Furious around, right? And at the same time, serious games like Schindler's Liste or Life of Pi. One does not exclude the other. Alright, that's it for today, and for this rather serious topic. Next week, you'll get the final episode of Weapons Verified, COD World at War, with the most stupidly wrong weapons in the game, as always with quite some, and in this case even very heavy support by Phil. And after this, I will give you a look on one of the Company of Heroes games and Battlefield 5. Now, I fear this video will be demonetized the second it is uploaded, so please consider supporting me via Patreon. Every little bit helps. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, a comment, or even subscribe, and probably take a look at the other content on this channel. Otherwise, see you!